I'll just give a bit of a background of myself. So I'm a senior consultant at Evaluate, and I have almost more than 15 years of experience within competitive intelligence, life sciences, including consulting. And my role my responsibilities at Evaluate is to scope, design and execute CI monitoring programs, as well as serve as a thought leader. Now, I want to ask a quick question, just sort of like a pulse check. Hands up if you've ever been in a position within your organization and you've missed a significant event or an opportunity and it's had a major impact on your organization, or that you don't really have confidence that you're monitoring or keeping a focus on macro level trends. Okay. So today I want to talk about a particular gap that we see a lot of times within competitive intelligence functions, and that's supporting cross-functional teams and executive leaders with corporate level information. So I'll just go through some of the key points I wanted to talk about here today. So I'll be talking about a new approach, which is a top level above competitive intelligence, and that is peer analysis. So defining that, understanding or highlighting the business need or how to identify that it may be a gap in your organization, as well as the benefits or the risks of not having it and the benefits of integrating that. I also want to go through some aspects of how to solve the gap, providing a framework, as well as Evaluate's approach to this particular workflow or peer analysis. Then I want to address some impact and value-add aspects which will help you support any business case to ensure that you're able to identify this gap and integrate this particular workflow, peer analysis, into your firm. And then I'll round up with some key takeaways. So what is peer analysis? Essentially, it's a workflow or an approach to support business partners, executive leaders, and cross-functional teams with that additional macro-level trends and market dynamics that influence decision-making at the corporate level. Now, before I go deeper into peer analysis, I just want to ground ourselves into something which is probably something which we're more likely to be familiar with, and that's competitive intelligence. Now, this is an approach that focuses mainly on the indication and TA level, it's within pharma biopharma. This is particularly where a lot of companies spend most of their CI dollars, and it looks to track brand competitors or brand assets or pipeline brands and pipeline assets within specific disease areas, and usually focuses on a list of specific companies. This is quite granular, so think things such as clinical trial tracking or projecting FDA approval timelines for particular drugs. Peer analysis, however, is more of a top-down approach and is indication TA agnostic. So it looks across the whole, it applies more of a macro lens across the whole market environment and competitive landscape. And one of the key differentiators from competitive intelligence is it actually looks to track or focus on a peer set of competitors across that have exposure in certain TAs or indications as the particular organization's overall portfolio, as well as their near-term objectives. This then feeds into allowing the capture of the organization's benchmark or how it compares to that peer set, particularly performance, ranking against that peer set, and also understanding where those competitors, their strategic direction and how they may be impacting your organization. Ultimately, both approaches, peer analysis or corporate level intelligence and competitive intelligence, are essentially they complement each other. So, layered in with the top-down macro level dynamics and information, feeding in the TA or indication level specific details can really provide a more comprehensive picture of the competitive landscape. and also empower business executive leaders and decision makers, as well as cross-functional teams. So what is the business need? What is the current challenges of not employing peer analysis or corporate level intel in your organization? So, one of the things that we see we see peer analysis as potentially something that is often overlooked in competitive intelligence functions, or it's operated in silos, or it's not broadly disseminated across the organization. There are a few reasons, but if we take, for example, competitive intelligence, which is more of a granular focus on indication and TA level, think anticipating events such as when the FDA approval timelines for a new market entrant. Now, because of this feeds into the second reason. A traditional bottoms-up CI is highly valuable, but it's resource intensive. So that means it is expensive and very time consuming. And the last reason, peer analysis, it's often one of those things where it's unclear, who owns it within an organization, or where it sits, or who's responsible for it, or who actually pays for it internally. So when we again look at the business need, there are certain elements to consider. Ensuring that to ensure that peer analysis effectively addresses the gap, there are certain elements to consider, right? Key topics that are usually covered in peer analysis are more sort of at the corporation level, so corporate level decision making, such as reorganizations, BD&L, priority portfolio, and this is layered on top with macro level lens through peer analysis, to then support and integrate TA and indication level CI flowing in from the brand and CI teams to ultimately give that more sort of 360-degree picture of the competitive landscape. So how do we solve this gap within intelligence? Right, so there are a couple of key things there are a few things to consider, and we have a framework here. So essentially, identify the peer set. Who are your top 10 to 15 competitors that you should be tracking that are, that are key for you to monitor, right? So in larger organizations, they probably have a peer set, or it's simple to do, or the executive leaders have already established or aligned on that peer set. If that set is not established or set up, you'd want to look at competitors that have a similar and therefore high level of threat to your organization's overall portfolio across all TAs and indications. Then you want to ensure that you have a monitoring system set up efficiently to track key events that feed into the analysis. So these are things such as pipeline achievements or setbacks, so positive data readouts or trial terminations, etc. Organizational restructuring, as I mentioned, headwinds and tailwinds, brand performance, and other aspects. You don't want to focus on looking at across that peer set and pulling out the key themes and trends, as well as macro market dynamics that are influencing strategic decisions for those competitors, as well as your organization. And then finally, which is quite important for communicating it back to your internal stakeholders, is leveling up the analysis, right? So you want to have an executive level comparison of this list of companies that are relevant to certain KPIs that you may have established or aligned with, to understand the overall strength and positioning of those competitors to your organization and where you sit in comparison to them. So I'll go through Evaluate's approach, specifically each of those 4 steps. So, given the elements involved in this analysis, we're going to take a couple of moments to showcase how we at Evaluate structure the workflow. So we leverage resources across Evaluate and Nostera at large to deliver value for our clients, essentially. So the first step, to establish the peer set, we leverage Pharma projects to provide a top-line assessment of those companies most aligned to our clients' overall therapeutic areas and indication level portfolio. We then evaluates pharma consensus forecasting data to understand the projected growth of target companies relative to those TAs of interest. And lastly, we use Biomed Tracker, which is supported by clinical and subject matter experts, along with company material, earnings calls, investor calls, conferences, etc., to interrogate those strategic objectives of target companies. And essentially, combining all this intelligence, we are then able to generate an evidence-backed recommendation for an appropriate peer set. The next step is, having an appropriate monitoring infrastructure is critical for this approach of peer analysis. As I mentioned, we used all of Nortella's data sets across Evaluate and Sightline. And layer in, on top of that, we layer in a high-touch coverage of corporate earnings calls, financial updates, and analysts' reactions and sentiment to provide that complete picture. And recall that we're focused on top-line analysis of key advancements and setbacks, etc. So this particular approach isn't focused on providing a 24 to 48-hour response that you normally see in typical competitive intelligence, but it allows you to step back and pause and take a more of a macro view of the environment. And as I mentioned, you bring in that CI or indication TI level to essentially mitigate, helps you to cover those topics that may be missed during competitive intelligence or TA indication level work streams, and can create that broader picture to essentially mitigate the risk of missing directional shifts in the market or not anticipating competitor moves. The third step, the most important element of this work stream, is creating those or going across that peer set and those events, track through monitoring, and pulling out is the most important element of the work stream, pulling out emerging themes and trends that our clients should be tracking, including TA opportunities, manufacturing shifts, deal-making trends, etc., as well as things such as tariffs, impact of Inflation Reduction Act, and broader market themes as well. Impact from generics and biosimilars on innovative products. Critical to this objective is really understanding your peers' organizations' positions and risk levels relative to market disruption. So tracking any direct competitor company responses and strategic directives to really impact the impact of this disruption. The third step, as the objective of this analysis is to truly support cross-functional business leaders, including both branded CI and strategy teams, it's essential and critical to level up the analysis and align on exact KPIs to be tracked over time. Now, KPIs can differ across organizations, but generally they tend to focus on 4 key points, which is exposing the portfolio's strengths and gaps, putting a spotlight on the pipeline and innovation leaders out there, mapping out commercial performance and benchmarking, and anticipating market shifts and competitor moves. And now I just want to talk about the impact of this, the potential impact of integrating this type of workflow, peer analysis, into the organization, and the value add it brings to the variety of stakeholders. So establishing this type of corporate level peer analysis should hopefully, should provide a positive impact on the organization. Some ideas we have for you to advocate this and build interest internally as a need if it is recognized as a gap within your organization. Peer analysis is potentially designed to be broad in order to fill the gaps, across organizational CI insights initiatives. So there are a number of teams that can be part of an advocacy building and can leverage this intelligence, including disease and therapy area CI teams, business development, research and R&D, etc., as well as strategic planning. So this type of analysis keeps all teams informed, and it's essential to keep them all in the loop to make sure that this is meeting their individual objectives and is relevant and is evolving over time. So how could you essentially try to make a business case and then have this integrated into your organization if you don't already have this workflow operating? So this may be required for, building a business case may be required for initiating this kind of analysis. And we've identified 4 key action points to consider. So create an example analysis, right? Mock up what kind of information this analysis would cover and entail, and circulate this with key business partners to get their buy-in and interest as well as perspectives. Build advocacy, as I mentioned before. Find those colleagues who can vocalize their support and serve as champions internally for the initiative. You need to essentially find those advocates coming in from different cross-functional teams, so you have a wider perspective on this workflow, such as BD, strategic planning, etc. Missed opportunity scenarios. So highlight how proactive preparation, ahead of anticipated events, could position the company strongly to react. You don't want to be proactive. You don't want to be reactive or be saying, "Oh, if we had known about this sort of high-level event, we could have done something differently." You need to be on the sort of having this to be on the pulse overall. And funding, right? Does this make sense to be funded by one particular group, or would it make sense to be funded by a cross-functional team? And then I just want to go through some key takeaways and finish up here. Building the business case. If you're a CI leader, essentially, and recognize this opportunity to better support your firm, and key business partners, build the business case, as I've mentioned, proactively gain the buy-in from all those stakeholders, and mock up something for them to see. Define the peer set, align with all key stakeholders that this is the level, these are the competitors to track. Identify an owner who will take charge and be responsible and to own this work stream and continue to maintain it. Distribute findings. Make sure this is communicated in the end to all relevant stakeholders to ensure the buy-in and that is continually reviewed. Involve the analysis. Frequently review the analytical components of peer analysis and evolve it and adjust it based on your client internal stakeholder needs as they evolved, as well as changing market dynamics and competitive landscape. And finally, I'd just like to, I'm happy to take questions on that. But if you want to find out more around peer analysis, or even the other, we do more sort of broader competitive intelligence monitoring, ranging from data and insights gathering, long-term monitoring, as well as strategic workshops. And we also, if you wanted to find out more around the internal proprietary platforms, Evaluate and Sightline that we utilize, please grab me on outside or come and visit our booth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. So do you have any questions? Let's take some questions from the audiences. Maybe I can just add some questions from my side, because I'm also, again, one of the users of Evaluate. So it is a bit of, I believe it's very nice CI tool, for sure, but how you can just personalize it to company, and you have got also, from my perspective in our company, we have got only one user page. So do you also thinking about different, like the personas who can consume the customer competitive intelligence, likewise, marketing perspectives, maybe just analytics perspective or researchers. So do you have some different personas, per se, the users, and also how you can manage the building these tools for different companies?
Yes. So if we take Evaluate, for example, which is mainly commercial intelligence within the life science field, the platform itself has many different functions within that, but mainly the focus really is providing consensus sales forecasts across various indications and therapies. And you are able to, for example, if you are interested in just a specific set of diseases or a specific TA, you are able to filter that. So you're only looking at the historical and consensus forecast sales data for a particular therapy or a particular indication or a particular product or a particular company. Keeping in mind that this consensus forecast data for Evaluates, commercial pharma intelligence, is picked up from 3 to 5, and if we take an average of 3 to 5 investor reports and create that forecasting. So in terms of the personalization, you are able to filter by specific elements. So that's kind of, yes, it's a platform, but the tailored approach is how you use the platform and how you use the specific filters, and time range and things like that. So that's an element where it allows you to lay it on top of that. Also, we do have obviously Sightline, which is like the sister brand that focuses on trial intelligence, and they sort of go hand in hand. But laid on top of the platforms, we do have the ability to provide bespoke support. So if there's a specific business need, for example, you want to understand the competition within a certain disease area, or understand what the market opportunity is within something like that. We have people, myself, for example, leveraging our own internal platforms and corroborating with secondary public domain information and material direct from the companies, and broker reports and analyst sentiment to really provide that overall more tailored solution to clients.